My entitled boss refuses to fix legitimate safety concerns that we have at our job, claiming that we are just lazy and that we are just going to have to deal with it. So, I decided to get some revenge by transcribing and printing off every single condescending remark she ever said about the company, resulting in absolute chaos, with my boss eventually losing her job. Here's what happened. So, this happened a few years ago, and I will be vague since I'm not sure if the dust has finally settled from this fiasco yet. At my former company, I was the secretary of a small improvement team that would meet monthly to discuss issues within the company and brainstorm ways to fix them. Something you need to know about me is that I was given this role because people know I am meticulous at keeping records, all due to some HR-related issues I had at a previous place of employment. I don't think my boss realized that this careful record-keeping also applied to her, especially when she appointed me to be secretary of this little committee. But I digress. I was an award-winning model employee, and I went above and beyond what was asked of me, just like many others in my department. But we were still having customer complaints and dealt with regular safety issues due to the company at large and through no fault of our own. When we brought these concerns to our boss's attention, emails were left unread, and during in-person exchanges, we were literally called whiny, needy, and were straight up told that we just needed to deal with it. Whatever the issue, from items being stolen by customers to people being unhappy with procedures the boss had set down for us to follow, it was always made to somehow be our fault. When we sought support from other departments, we were met with cold indifference since the boss was great to them, and we must be exaggerating the things that she said to us. Well, during an improvement meeting at the end of the fiscal year, it all came to a head. Myself and a couple of team members dug our heels in and were insistent about the unresolved issues that the boss refused to acknowledge. As a result, she finally went off on us. She told us that everyone was incompetent, we didn't deserve our jobs, and that maybe customers would like us more if we were more likable. When people pressed her on safety issues, she just continued to reiterate that we would just have to deal with it. She also said that if someone passes away, then apparently they would have already anyways, right? Well, I, as the secretary, did my duty and took notes of all that happened over the course of that meeting. I usually did bullet points, but that night I was feeling a little more thorough, so I wrote down every single word that was said, every hateful comment, every denial of accountability, as well as many of the idle threats. All of that was recorded in black and white. Now, a second part of my job was to distribute the notes from the improvement meeting all the way to the rest of the company. So, come the next morning, I ran about 100 copies of the transcript of the meeting and hand-delivered them to every single department in the building. And when I did that, things really blew up. People from other departments who had attended the meeting were able to verify that everything I typed up had really been said. And let me tell you something, everybody was super mad. People were threatening to quit their jobs, they were refusing to do their normal duties, they were browsing online to find another job during work hours. Even my boss's boss, who worked at headquarters, got wind of these meeting minutes only a few hours after I handed them out and ended up having an hour-long off-the-record conversation with me about all the safety issues I had documented, all the concerns I had submitted to management in writing, and all the records I had regarding my boss's inaction. She was very grateful for the 100 pages of documentation that I sent over and thanked me for my time. Well, the day after I unleashed Pandora's box, I put in my 2 weeks' notice, took a new job, and pieced out to greener pastures. At first, it seemed like things were calming down after I left, but the following year, the company did not renew my boss's contract. I still feel a bit bad because I wasn't trying to get her fired or ruin her life. I was just desperate for some accountability thrown her way, just to create some kind of positive change in the company. But at the end of the day, I just did exactly what she told me to do. Yeah, your former boss is awful. Here you have some actual safety concerns, and you're trying to bring this to her attention. But instead of doing anything about it, she would just brush it off and be like, oh, you're just going to have to deal with it. And she would even be like, well, if somebody passes away, that's their problem. Like, no, lady, if somebody passes away, it's going to be your problem. If there are safety concerns at a job that would put someone's life at risk, and you have a manager who's not willing to do their job to get it fixed, that, in my opinion, is the mark of somebody who should not be a manager. She absolutely should have been fired right after that. That is so unacceptable and so dismissive of other people's safety. And that dismissive attitude would not protect her when things finally hit the fan. So personally, I would not feel bad about this lady getting in trouble. You did not do anything wrong by printing off everything she said. This lady absolutely had it coming, and she definitely needed to go because seriously, somebody could have gotten hurt. And I can easily see this happening if you had just stayed silent. An entitled customer launches a shopping cart at me right as I'm bringing shopping carts back into the store, and I've honestly never been more annoyed by a customer in my life. Here's what happened. So, a few months ago, I was doing a cart run in the parking lot of the store that I work at. This is something that I do fairly regularly, and on this particular day, I had a whole bunch of carts that I needed to gather. So, I found myself nearing the entrance when I heard someone shout out, "Hey, you over there." I turned around, and a few feet away, there was some random dude with a cart. He then proceeded to launch his cart towards me with the expectation that I would make his cart part of my lineup. The cart hit the line with a deafening crash. Now, it's not the fact that he wanted me to include his cart in my line that I consider the problem. I have had numerous customers ask if I could take their cart, to which I almost always say yes, unless I truly have so many that taking another would make things more difficult. However, this dude didn't even ask and instead sent his cart barreling my way at a high speed. He seemed to be under the impression that his cart would not render my line difficult to control, never mind the fact that I had a line of 9 to 10 carts, which was already somewhat difficult to control but nothing unmanageable. And then there's the whole thing about him launching his cart at me. Rest assured, folks, a shopping cart can cause great deals of harm if not handled correctly. I once got jabbed in the back of my foot by a shopping cart, and it caused me great deals of pain. If that is what a single jab can do, what do you think having a cart launched at you at a very high speed is going to do? Best case scenario, it hurts like crazy, and worst case scenario, a bone ends up getting broken. Thankfully, he aimed at my line, but it was still really dangerous. The impact could have caused the line to break up, which could have caused damage or harm. But the worst thing about the whole situation is that as he was doing all of this, he was smiling. Not a malicious smile, but a good-natured smile. This man legitimately did not see anything wrong with what he had just done. Well, if I were the manager and I had just witnessed that whole situation, I would have stormed out of the store and explained to him, using some not very nice language, exactly why what he had done was wrong before promptly issuing a lifelong ban from the store. All I'm saying is that the customer is really lucky that his cart didn't hit me. I mean, like I said, a shopping cart hitting you at a fast speed can cause some really bad harm. Not to mention that could technically count as assault, and you better believe that I would be pressing charges. Wow, that's really rude of that customer. I know whenever I have a shopping cart, I either put it in the gated area where it's supposed to be or bring it to the person who's putting the carts away. But only if they don't look busy. If I can see they're in motion and taking the carts in, I just avoid them because clearly they have enough on their plate already. The last thing they need is me bringing more carts around just to try and muscle them back into the store. So, for this guy with a smile on his face to throw the shopping cart at you at full speed, that, in my opinion, was really uncalled for. And I don't blame the original poster for getting upset in the slightest. Am I the fool for telling my cousins off after they started taking their grief out on me in regards to my siblings and my parents? Because honestly, I'm starting to second guess myself, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm the only surviving member of my family. When I was 5 years old, I lost my mom and my 4 older siblings in an accident. I was then raised by my maternal grandparents. After the initial accident, my family were told none of us had survived, and so I was a surprise when the news reached them. My grandparents, aunts, and uncles were all thrilled, but my cousins were not. They were much closer to my siblings, similar ages to them. Meanwhile, I was 6 years younger than my youngest sister and 8 years younger than my youngest cousin. So, I wasn't really in with my cousins, but with my siblings, we were a tight unit. They would often reject our cousins when they weren't interested in a baby tagging along like me. So, I think when I was the one who came home and not one of my siblings, my cousins hated me for it. So, we never got close, and it was always weird. But then a few weeks ago, we were at my grandparents' house for a celebration. It was my husband and I with our 4 kids. My cousins were all huddled together for a while and then started dropping comments to me about the choice to give my kids their own names and not honor my mother or siblings with their names. They asked me how I could claim to love and miss my family when I didn't even think to honor them, or how I would act like they meant the world to me when I didn't want my kids to know about them via their names. Now, I did my best to avoid them the rest of the celebration, and then a couple of weeks after that, we were together again for my aunt's retirement party. The comments continued there, and they told me they would have named their kids after my mom or siblings, but their parents had suggested it should be reserved for me and left alone if I didn't, because maybe it would be too painful. They told me I hogged my family just like I hogged my siblings back then, and I didn't even love them as much as they did. I became so frustrated that when we were all alone in a room together because I had followed them there, I told them that they should not be taking their grief out on me. I told them I never tried stopping them from using the name of my mom and siblings for their kids. They never said anything about wanting that to me until they decided to make all those bitter comments. I told them I was sorry they were grieving, but I could not take responsibility for coming back and not my siblings, and that naming my kids has nothing to do with them. So drop the comments about it showing a lack of love. I told them I was not going to be their emotional punching bag, and I did not deserve their grief being taken out on me. So honestly, am I the fool here? What should I do? Your cousins are being really toxic here. First and foremost, the fact that they wouldn't embrace you as the one cousin that survived and they didn't decide to huddle around you and build you up, that, in my opinion, is insane to me. Here you are just a child, and your cousins just outright reject you all because you're not your siblings. Like seriously, these people are so messed up. I can't imagine doing that to a child, especially after their entire families passed away. That is seriously so evil. So when it comes to the names of your children and how your cousins are like, wow, you should have named it after your siblings, and how they really tried to imply that because you named your kids something else, you must have never even loved them in the first place. That logic is so flawed it's not even funny. They are literally trying to guilt trip you for being alive and then shaming you for doing something that you didn't do that they wanted. It's honestly insane, and there's no way I would ever put up with that. But when it comes to how you approach this and how you put them all in their place, honestly, I don't think you're the fool at all. You laid down a very clear line in the sand that these people had better not cross ever again. You told them exactly how you feel and how they need to get out of your business and stay out of it. And how do they respond? By the way, oh, that's right, they get embarrassed and angry at you, which, in my opinion, is all the evidence you would ever need to basically prove your case and be like, oh, yeah, you really are guilty here. You feel bad about how you've been treating me all these years because I bet they probably thought they could get away with these awful comments. They probably thought this was okay because you hadn't said anything yet. And since you've maybe been quiet in the past, they could just keep doing this to you even with your kids in the picture. But that is absolutely unacceptable, especially since all of them are adults. Like, I don't care what kind of grief they're going through to pin that on the one cousin that survived and to imply that they never loved their siblings or their parents, all because they didn't name their 4 kids after their dead siblings. That, in my opinion, is insane. And I can't understand that if they really missed those family members that much, they would have honored them in some kind of way. So truly, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this because your cousins sound really exhausting, and I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever want to deal with that. My partner has lied to me for years, claiming that he enlisted in the Army right after high school, and now that I found out the truth after all these years, I do not trust him anymore, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, I met my boyfriend in the summer of 2015, and we were smitten. A few months later, we began officially dating. Education is really important in my family. I have a bachelor's degree, and I'm the least educated. My boyfriend has a few credits, but that's it, and I always overlook this as he enlisted in the Army after high school. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, and trust has been a struggle, mostly because he has told a lot of lies. There are many examples, some of them big and some of them small, but just know I decided to forgive him every time. He has mostly been a good and loving partner. He is my best friend, and we have built a life together. But he has been very sick. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, I noticed his eyes looked a bit yellow. He told me he felt fine, he was just tired, and he didn't think they looked yellow. Some of his meds have been causing mood swings, and he has been getting really defensive while talking about his health, so I just dropped it. Fast forward, and Thanksgiving came around. My family are doctors, every single one of them. My sister specializes in GI stuff, and at one point, they asked me if I noticed his color. We discussed how something needed to be done. We weren't doing his family stuff specifically because he wanted a day where he didn't have to answer questions about his health. But I talked to him privately about how my sister and brother-in-law wanted to talk to us about it when he saw them on Saturday, to which he agreed. On Saturday, he is yellow. We had been talking about getting him to a GI doctor, but now we're talking about getting him to the emergency room. He got overwhelmed, and we compromised on him getting to sleep at home and us going the first thing in the morning. So my sister and mom come by to pick us up first thing in the morning. We discuss which hospital would be best. My boyfriend's health insurance through work may or may not be in effect, so we are thinking VA. He got overwhelmed and said he didn't want to go there for reasons like the quality of care and long waits. My sister said there is a chance he would end up getting sent to a bigger hospital in our area anyways, so we went there. We still don't know what's going on, but he is very unwell. My family is concerned that his family doesn't fully understand the severity and then get on me to make sure that they come by to see him for themselves. So his mom and stepdad came by. I think I was successful, but we just made small talk mostly. His nurse came in to say she got him off his liquid diet, and when the tray came in, they left. He had one bite and then suddenly started vomiting. And I even went out to ask the nurse what they needed to do with a vomit bag. His mom and stepdad are at the station getting put on the list to be notified of anything, and that's when we start talking about the insurance thing. I told them I planned on being with him all day tomorrow so I could figure that stuff out. I said that I haven't even started looking into programs that can assist veterans like this. But they stopped me and asked what I'm talking about. They then said that he is not a veteran. Now, at this point, I'm very confused, and it became obvious to all of us what has happened. They asked me to not say anything yet, and if it weren't for trust being such a big thing in our history, I may have waited. But I lasted 2 minutes before I asked him. He immediately told me the truth and began answering my questions. We talked for a few hours, and during the nurse shift change, I asked them if they could give him something for anxiety and left after they did. Having that conversation with him yellow in a hospital bed was surreal. I think I'm most upset that by saying a stupid lie when we met just to impress me has led to almost a decade of him lying to my family and my friends. He wants to tell them, but I don't think I can keep the secret long. They are all full steam ahead to help him out and are leaning into his VA benefits. I can't lie for him, but I also want him focused on his health. I don't want to lose him, but I don't know if he's lost me. I want our life together, but I want to never see him again. I'm afraid of life without him in both versions. So, do I tell them, or do I wait until he's more stable? Do I stay with him, or is it insane if I'm even considering it? What should I do? This is a massive red flag, and it is not something I would even take lightly. This guy lied about being in the military, he lied about serving and then also having insurance. Like, that is not something simple that you just lie about. That is a serious lie that has a lot of implications. He has been fooling you for years. Think about that for a second. This guy seriously said he joined the military after high school. But in reality, he's been doing who knows what, and I don't know about you, but if I was in your situation, I would be very scared. What has your boyfriend been up to after all these years? Because he has definitely not been in the military, which, again, why would someone lie about that? Do they really not think that people are going to find out the truth? This whole scenario is seriously disturbing to me, and I would not take this lightly if I were you, because if he can lie about serving in the military, then who knows what else he has possibly lied about. Today, I bought a car that I thought was legit but ended up getting scammed out of thousands of dollars. But thankfully, after a long investigation with the police, I was able to get a full refund. Here's what happened. To start things out, I found this amazing deal online for a sleek, almost brand new car. The price was unbelievably low, and the pictures made it look like a steal. I know what you're thinking, that's a giant red flag, right? But I was so excited that I just let my guard down. I contacted the seller, who claimed to be overseas but assured me that he had a trusted third party handling the sale. He sent me all these official-looking documents, including a contract and what appeared to be a legitimate invoice. I mean, this seriously looked legitimate. The whole thing felt like a well-thought-out operation. Well, long story short, I wired them the money, and the car was supposedly on its way. Days passed by, and I got nothing. No updates, no tracking information, absolutely nothing. And that's right when it hit me. I had definitely been scammed. Frustration doesn't even begin to cover what I felt. I decided to take matters into my own hands and reported the incident to the local authorities and filed a complaint with the online platform where I found the listing. I also reached out to my bank to see if there was any way they could trace the funds. Days turned into a week, and just when I was losing hope, I got a call from the police. They had tracked down the scammer's location, and it turned out to be part of a larger scam operation. They were able to freeze the funds in the scammer's account, and with the evidence gathered, they were building a case against the whole group. But it didn't end there. Though I had gone through the process of getting my money back from the bank, and it honestly took me some time, they were very thorough in their investigation. Eventually, I got a full refund. That is literally my worst nightmare on planet Earth. Can you imagine spending all that money, only to then find out that you had accidentally slipped into a scam operation and that the car you're trying to buy isn't actually real? Like, this guy probably spent thousands of dollars wiring over to these people overseas. So, it just goes to show you that you need to keep up your guard no matter what, because even if something looks like it might be legitimate, at the end of the day, it might just be a giant scam. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications.